If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. Numerous residents of Lup, Arizona had been startled when a UFO was once noticed flying over their city, which commenced at 7:40 p.m. Wednesday and endured until 9 p.m. that night. Two eyewitnesses to the tournament got here out to bravely disclose what they had viewed that evening. Sean and Deanna Dover have been riding domestic from Flagstaff, Arizona heading to Lup when Deanna noticed an odd-looking craft hovering some distance above their Honda Accord. 27. Photo of Phoenix Lights, also at Winslow and Lup in 1997. Deanna, age 20, stated, "I noticed a brilliant mild and instructed my brother to watch it. She hesitated for a moment. Then it disappeared, then reappeared. I didn't see it as a great deal as he did, due to the fact I had to listen on driving." Her brother Sean, a senior at Sinagua High School, nodded. He states, "We have been about 10 miles out of Lup and my sister stated she noticed something. It had a circle around it and used to be about 1.5 miles above us. It had 3 lights and used to be triangular in shape. We stored on using, and when we reached Lup, we noticed it had 4 lights. They then watched as the UFO slowly flew over the Church of the Nazarene and the Lup Public School. When it reached the area of town, it went into stealth mode and had solely one dim light," Sean said. The two endured pressure through Lup and rushed domestic to inform their dad and mum what they had viewed that evening. Sean said, "We went internal and received my dad's nighttime imaginative and prescient goggles. He defined that his father is a Navajo Nation police ranger and has tools that have a specific gadget on it to enable the consumer to see sincerely in the dark. At this factor, they all walked the backyard to see if they ought to watch the ordinary craft." Sean stated, "Then 2 jets intercepted it in the air. They got here from the southwest. Then it headed east. 8 minutes later it misplaced them and circled lower back to Lup. When it brought right here, it commenced blinking its lights." From Sean's description of the match up to this point, it seems the UFO though chased out of the area, lower back to end what it had started. Perhaps to talk with a hidden underground alien facility or to scan the region for a mineral or misplaced probe. Whatever it was once doing, the truth remains, the technologically superior craft ditched 2 Army jets then got here returned to its unique function over Lup. This shows it had a reason that was once but unfinished. Sean was once absolutely assured in figuring out the object as a UFO and no longer mistaking it for some different structure of aircraft. He stated, "It was once journeying too speedy to be an aircraft and now not emitting any noises that a helicopter or aircraft would have made flying that high." Note that the truth that it was once silent and had no seen capability of propulsion and no figuring out sound of propulsion is seen throughout most UFO sightings. This lets the craft sneak up and skip through homes, neighborhoods, and communities, except elevating awareness, except you are one of the fortunate ones to be searching up at the sky at the very second it passes. As Sean's household watched the UFO fly around Lup, flashing its lights in nearly a signaling pattern. Sean's mum Daisy, known as her pal and co-worker Denise Fredericks, who went outdoor and additionally noticed the UFO. Denise is a 5th grade trainer at Lup Elementary School. Denise states, "I was once coming domestic from my son's basketball recreation in Dulcon. When I got here interior the house and my husband said, Daisy simply referred to as and stated there used to be something in the sky, then I noticed a triangular element go overhead." The Fredericks and Daisy Dover then met up at the core of Lup close to the gasoline station and watched the occasions with about 30 different UFO eyewitnesses. Denise said, "There had been 2 different planes and every other plane that it regarded like used to be refueling them." Then she spoke of the UFO nevertheless in her line of sight. "It was once flying straight and then it turned. It went towards Bird Springs and then it grew to become towards Tulani Lake and then got here lower back this way. The 2 jets refueling whilst a triangular UFO flies round in their line of sight." Might also point out that the UFO can also have simply been an authority's craft, or they noticed it as a non-threatening craft and the jets desired to exhibit their disapproval of the UFO in area. Jets not often if ever refuel whilst attempting to intercept UFOs. The reality that these 2 jets have been refueling from some other plane tells us they have been trailing the UFO for a lengthy time and that they felt it was once no hazard whatsoever, permitting them time to refuel. This is very bizarre for the USAF. They think about any bogey that enters their airspace to be a possible threat. To refuel in the front of the UFO is nearly unheard of in UFO sightings. All of the eyewitnesses to the UFO described the craft as a triangular structure with 3 or 4 tiers or stages to it. On the backside of the craft used to be a sphere with a pulsating light. They stated the UFO circled the vicinity 15 times. Denise and Daisy stated that the UFO emitted a yellowish mild and used to be about twice the dimension of the Lup Elementary School gymnasium. As the UFO embarked on its 15 loops around Lup, the craft's lights unexpectedly went dark. At this factor, unexpected and speedy illumination shot throughout its edges in a sample formation as if to ship a sign to any person nearby. Just as unexpected as it started, the flashing stopped and the craft started to make its way closer to Winslow in the southeast. The eyewitnesses stated that numerous of them have been carrying cameras and did take photos of the craft. However, due to the fact of the darkness and the severe distance of the floor and the aircraft, shooting the UFO in reality used to be impossible. Photos solely published the UFO's lights and should no longer make out the structure of the craft itself. Every eyewitness stated the activities had been special due to the shut proximity of the UFO to the ground, now not to point out that the craft was once considered flying alone. This UFO sighting was once no longer the first for the area, however alternatively one of many in records of Lup. One witness, Sean, stated, "It used to be in reality fascinating to watch. I consider that it certainly was once a UFO due to the fact of my family's history. I've viewed them too many instances to remember. Lup is a warm spot for UFOs." He went on to say that the UFO sightings at Lup commonly are of several UFOs traveling collectively in a triangle formation. However, the sighting they had on January 24, 2007, used to be special in that the craft flew on my own and so low to the ground. Deanna stated, "We see them, well, I don't choose to say we see them all the time, however, it's happened before. When they had that huge sighting in Phoenix returned in 1991, we noticed the equal lights right here the night time before. I wager it's simply that no one ever calls it in or reviews it here. This is extraordinarily cool. I've in no way viewed something that unique before, due to the fact it flew so shut to us." The neighborhood house insisted that comparable UFO sightings took Area 15 and 17 years beforehand in the very identical location. A comparable sighting now not a ways from Lup used to be the Phoenix Lights of 1997. The Phoenix Lights was once a sighting returned on March 13, 1997. The sighting took region over Arizona, Nevada, and the Mexico nation of Sonora. The UFO sighting used to be even filmed through American Fox News TV station. The most well-known of all the eyewitnesses used to be Arizona Republican Governor Fife Symington. He says that he himself was once a witness to one of the odd unidentified flying objects. He stated, "I witnessed a large delta-shaped craft silently navigate over Squaw Peak. At 6:55 p.m. on Thursday of March 13, 1997, an eyewitness in Henderson, Nevada, was once first to record a V-shaped craft with 6 massive lights on its main edge. It used to be coming in the direction of his function from the northwest and surpassed overhead." In his written document to NUFORC, National UFO Reporting Center, he noted that it was once the size of a Boeing 747. And then he went on to say that the UFO made an uncommon sound like a rushing wind. He referred to that it endured on a straight route towards the southeast and vanished from his line of sight. This uncommon sighting would lead to large eyewitnesses, numbering in the tens of thousands, and some estimate thousands of thousands, over the subsequent 3 hours of the UFO flying over Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Mexico. A retired police officer additionally pronounced seeing the UFO over Paulden, Arizona. He had simply left domestic and observed it in the sky at 8:15 p.m. as it flew over a mountaintop. He used to be using north when he gazed out the driver's aspect window searching west and noticed a cluster of 5 reddish or orange lights. These lights consisted of 4 lights together, with a 5th mild curiously trailing the different 4. Each of the character lights in the formation consisted of 2 separate sources of orange light. At this factor, the officer immediately drove again domestic to get a pair of binoculars. He took them and watched the UFO as the lights disappeared over the horizon to the south. He stated he watched them for a complete of 2 minutes. He remembered that the huge craft made no sound at all. At about this time, an overwhelmingly wide variety of cell phone reviews commenced pouring into the NUFORC, National UFO Reporting Center, and to different UFO organizations, police stations, the information media, and Luke Air Force Base. These reviews have been referred to as in from the communities of Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, Dewey, Cords Junction, Wickenburg, Cave Creek, and Endless Greater from areas each north and west of Phoenix. One crew of 3 eyewitnesses simply north of Phoenix stated that they noticed a huge, wedge-shaped craft with 5 lights on its ventral floor skip overhead with an eerie gliding kind of flight. They watched as it traveled from the north and exceeded between 2 mountain peaks to the south. The eyewitnesses stored emphasizing one issue overall about the UFO: it was once so big that it used to be blockading out 70 to 90 stages of the sky itself. The second crew of eyewitnesses to this UFO sighting was once a mum and her 4 daughters close to the intersection of Indian School Road and 7th Avenue. They had been startled when an object formed like a sergeant's stripe got here toward them from over Camelback Mountain to the north. They stated that it got here to an entire give-up proper above them and hovered over them for 5 minutes. They went on to say that when they regarded up, the UFO blocked 30 to 40 tiers of the sky out and that it had a moderate glow around its edges. They stated that they may want to see character points on the decreased stomach of the UFO, and they have been assured that they had been searching at a single rather large, strong flying object. The most necessary phenomenon that came about that night time used to be mostly left out and emitted by way of the masses. The UFO endured shifting south and then it abruptly fired a white beam of mild at the ground. At the equal time, 7 lights on one facet of the UFO shut off, disappearing from the eyewitnesses' view. This is vital due to the fact if the craft shot a white mild at the ground, we can expect that it was once no longer to spoil something, however, as an alternative to transporting something or anyone down to the ground, or up to the ship. What or who, we might also by no means know, however, can solely imagine. Another essential document that night time got here from a younger man who was once an airman in the US Air Force. He used to be stationed close by at Luke Air Force Base, simply west of Phoenix in Litchfield Park. He was referred to the National UFO Reporting Center (NUFORC) at 3:20 on Friday. It was once 8 hours after the UFO sighting took place. He said to NUFORC that the USAF F-15C opponents had been scrambled at Luke Air Force Base and had truly intercepted the UFOs. The USAF alternatively would no longer verify his story or the place of the fighter jets that night. The airman gave notably specified descriptions, which proved to be extraordinarily accurate, primarily based upon the records that investigators had reconstructed from eyewitness accounts. 2 days later, after his first call, the airman knew as into NUFORC to document that he was once simply knowledgeable using his commander that he used to be being transferred to a challenge in Greenland. This airman has by no means been heard of for the reason that that phone call. Perhaps they will by no means have the solutions to what sincerely was once flying over Lup, Arizona on that night in 2007, however one issue is for sure: these UFOs have been considered by using tens of heaps of eyewitnesses, with video recorded and uploaded to YouTube.com and different video sites. Although no principal newspapers pronounced the Phoenix Lights clearly blocked out by way of the US government, many small Arizona city newspapers did lift the pics and memories of eyewitnesses. Also, Fox TV News helped convey this sighting to the public, who bravely pronounced the UFO sighting on the spot in Phoenix, breaking the US government unwritten rule of no longer reporting UFO sightings. With bravery like Fox News and Arizona Republican Governor Fife Symington, we understand as UFO researchers, we are no longer by ourselves in our undertaking to carry the reality to light. 2007 UFO sighting: amateur astronomer in Italy. On April 29, 2007, Alberto Mayer, who lives in Busto Arsizio, Italy, and is a newbie astronomer, observed an extraordinary discovery nearly by using an accident. He states that whilst adjusting the focal point of his telescope that night time at 10:52 p.m., he noticed and tracked on video a UFO as it flew throughout the floor of the moon. The brief 2-minute video he made appears greater than that of an expert astronomer than an amateur, however, he prefers to be known as an amateur. The video suggests the parts of the moon that he used to be centered on in shut-up mode whilst monitoring a stable black spherical object as it flew over the floor of the moon at an elevation he measured to be 214 meters above the surface of the moon. This video is truly amazing, each in the way he put it collectively and in its organization. The spherical black object is tracked as he catches it on its ride, commencing simply after it surpassed Wallace Crater and then passes over Wallace Alps. Then on its way, it passes beneath or close to these craters: Egede, Eudoxus, Plana. As it passes the Plana crater and comes between Daniel and Grace Crater, it hovers and hesitates for about 15 seconds, earlier than it makes an unexpected alternate of direction at a genuine 45-degree angle. Also, a word that earlier than it turned, 32 seconds into the video it unexpectedly slowed down to 1/2 its authentic velocity earlier than it all of sudden hesitated for 15 seconds, and then moved upward at a 45-degree angle. As it strikes upwards, you can see it bypass the labeled craters on the moon in this order: Grace, Plana, Borg, Bally A, Bally, Gartner, Democritus, Moigno A, Baylord, and De Sitter earlier than it disappears round the edges of the moon to the darkish side, out of the telescope's view. As the black UFO passes by way of Grace Crater, it started to no longer solely pace up, however additionally proceed to pick out up momentum till it was once 1.75 to 2.0 instances quicker than it was once when first viewed touring previous Wallace Alps. UFO pictures in its best possible first class offered. Alberto Mayer noted he caught this UFO as I used to be focusing the scope whilst I observed some dirt spots on the digital camera CCD. I cleaned the sensor twice, and after cleansing it, I saw that new large black spot. I bought truly irritated, wondering that it was once so tough to smooth that CCD, then I noticed the spot transferring via the screen. At that second he grew to be excited and puzzled at what it may want to perchance be. Quickly he had to act earlier than it was once misplaced in simply minutes. He says, unfortunately the C's software program used to be set to grasp only 300 body per sequence, so I had to restart the grabbing many times, dropping some treasured seconds between the movies. At the identical time, I ought to observe manually doing some errors whilst urgent the hand-filled slewing keys, due to the surprising excitement. Alberto went on to say, the moon was once 36 degrees above the horizon, no longer a long way to attain the meridian. I concept it would possibly be a geosynchronous satellite, however, some calculations proved that it needs to have been honestly huge. Now we are attempting to look into the viable motive of this event. We bet it ought to be a balloon even if the dimension of the object appears now not to suit with this option. Note this remaining sentence, due to the fact latter, every other astronomer who solely noticed the video, insisted and persuaded Alberto to trust that it was once in truth a balloon, which I will show to you is impossible. Here we locate that Alberto is attempting to discover the solutions and strolling calculations to ensure he is correct. The difficulty of it being a balloon comes up, however, is rapidly disregarded due to the fact its measurement was once out of share with the craft considered in the images. If it had been a balloon, it would have to be floating at least 6,000 meters high. Note that passenger airliners journey at greater altitudes to keep away from excessive winds and disturbances. This makes it even much less probably that the UFO used to be a balloon due to the small probabilities that the astronomer would witness the object hesitate for 15 full seconds, then exchange its route at a precise 45-degree attitude of what it was once visiting earlier. This indicates us it used to be now not a balloon at all. The greater the altitude, the much less turbulence and wind resistance, which means an unexpected exchange in course appears too astronomically minute to even consider. Imagine this, a climate balloon is dispatched off and it is like most climate balloons, made of particularly bendy and skinny latex fabric or even a chloroprene cloth would possibly be used. Now let's location the luminous full moon on a clear night at the back of the skinny latex or chloroprene climate balloon. With a telescope, what you will locate is that it will become translucent in its core and barely darker around its edges. Such occurrences have been documented earlier than, and the translucent or clearness with the mild shining via has been considered by way of different astronomers. Note, the UFO in the video that Alberto noticed used to be a solid, flat black semi-round object. This object in no way validated any translucency with the moon at the back of it, consequently, it is really looking to say Alberto used to be right on his first assumption of it being an intelligently managed flying object over the lunar surface. Astronomers from around the world have stated such sightings as Alberto Mayer. They don't commonly describe the object they see as a UFO as Alberto appears to have accomplished in the beginning, however as an alternative as an FMO, fast-moving object, transferring throughout or close to the lunar surface. Typically, these take the shape of both mild or darkish spots, with velocities of 0.001 to 0.1 per second and a period of beneath 1 minute. This is very comparable to Mayer's sighting the place the length used to be 2 minutes and the object used to be spherical and flat black. Scientists have evaluated the speculation that these phenomena are of terrestrial starting place and solely show up projected towards the moon using chance. However, statistical evaluation exhibits an exceptional reply altogether. It exhibits to us that there are an over-quantity of enormous FMO sightings in the Mare Imbrium place close to the Nectaris Fecunditatis area. This is the equal area that Alberto Mayer recorded the UFO. This makes April 29, 2007, by way of Alberto Mayer the quality recorded, publicly documented, and allotted proof of existence current on the moon to date. Although several buildings have been viewed on the moon, some even in the form of faces, but the governments around the world decide to preserve the public in the darkish to stop them from panicking. Even Alberto Mayer tries to inform others now that what he noticed on that day was once simply a balloon, due to the fact he is aware of if he ever wishes to be taken critically in the scientific community, he must no longer ever point out the phrases unidentified flying object. His worry of being ridiculed through closed-minded folks holds him returned from declaring his authentic emotions and his real beliefs. As I stated earlier, there have been several different sightings through astronomers themselves of objects that simply defy explanation. Let's dive into simply a few of the most memorable ones. On February 2, 1990, in Hamburg, Germany, a newbie astronomer discovered a massive triangle with luminous rings in its corners. Astronomer Gitschke noticed the silent flying triangle when he used to be searching closer to the sky at the stars. He calculated that the object used to be about 70 meters alongside every one of its three edges. He stated that there was once luminous dirt glowing in the nighttime sky, even after the luminous UFO had already flown away. In every one of the three corners of the UFO have been crimson glowing rings. He recorded the altitude of the UFO at being 300 meters above the ground. In precisely 8 seconds, the UFO had moved from zenith to horizon, closer to the town of Hamburg, the place it vanished. On August 20, 1949, astronomer Clyde Tombaugh had a UFO sighting. Understand that Clyde Tombaugh is now not simply any other astronomer, however, as an alternative is a well-known astronomer that determined the planet Pluto. He stated that he had viewed countless UFOs. He described them as 6 to 8 rectangular glowing lights. These lights had been window-like in look and yellowish-green in color, which moved from northwest to southeast over Las Cruces, New Mexico. He stated, "I doubt that the phenomenon used to be any terrestrial reflection, because nothing of the type has ever seemed earlier than or since. I was once so unprepared for such an extraordinary sight that I used to be surely petrified with astonishment." In 1956, Tombaugh stated that he had frequently considered mysterious inexperienced fireballs that would abruptly show up over New Mexico in late 1948, with several sightings into the early 1950s. He stated, "I have viewed 3 objects in the final 7 years which defied any clarification of acknowledged phenomenon, such as Venus, atmospheric optic, meteors or planes. I am an incredibly skilled, expert astronomer. Also, I have viewed 3 inexperienced fireballs which had been unusual in conduct from regular inexperienced fireballs. I suppose that various professional scientists are being unscientific in refusing to entertain the opportunity of them being of extraterrestrial foundation and nature." Finally, we come to my favored UFO sighting by way of an astronomer. This UFO sighting used to be by using Edmund Halley, the discoverer of Halley's Comet. In March of 1676, whilst searching at the stars, he stated that he noticed a vast physique curiously better than the moon. In his recorded calculations, he estimated the altitude of the object to be 40 miles above him. He additionally wrote down that it made a noise, like the rattling of an extremely good cart over stones. Using his genius capabilities with astronomical calculations, he rapidly estimated the distance that the UFO traveled in a be counted of minutes. He got here to the conclusion that it had been transferring at a velocity of shut to 9,600 miles per hour, which astounded him. 39 years later, in 1716, he would have a 2D UFO sighting, the place he witnessed it hovering in location for 2 full hours earlier than it flew away. In November of 2009, Vatican City, the identical vicinity that 400 years in the past locked up the world well-known astronomer Galileo for difficult. The Catholic Church's view that the Earth was once at the core of the universe, the Vatican has requested that specialists in their discipline step up to learn about the opportunity of extraterrestrial alien existence and its implication for the Catholic Church. An astronomer and director of the Vatican Observatory stated, "The questions of life's origins and of whether or not lifestyles exist some other place in the universe are very appropriate and deserve serious consideration." Reverend José Gabriel Funes introduced the information stations with the outcomes of a 5-day conference that gathered astronomers, physicists, biologists, and different specialists to discuss the new up-and-coming discipline of astrobiology, scientific phrase for ufology, which will focal point on the find out about of the foundation of lifestyles and its existence some other place in the cosmos. If the Church of Rome's views ought to shift so suddenly, then it leaves us to wonder, how lengthy till scientists round the world provide astrobiology, ufology, the serious consideration that it virtually deserves? The future will now not wait forever, nor will the truth. Astronaut Drive Edgar Michell interview. Astronaut Edgar Michell is a notable scientist and an all-American hero who used to be born on September 17, 1930, note, equal 12 months as Apollo 20 William Rutledge astronaut. He was once a pilot and an astronaut for NASA. Mitchell's crowning success that positioned him into records used to be him being the pilot of the lunar module for the duration of the Apollo 14 moon mission. On this extraordinary mission, he received a whopping 9 hours of moon strolling time alongside the Fra Mauro formation. He holds the file for the world's longest moonwalk. On February 5, 1971, this moonwalk made him the sixth man or woman to ever stroll on the moon. A giant variety of pics started revealing uncommon anomalies like photographers 14689453 of Apollo 14, which confirmed a face carved in stone shut up close to an astronaut. Just Google the quantity and you will locate it. In July of 2008, Michell did interviews on many information shows, TV stations, and was once on Kerrang radio. On the radio exhibit, he stated that now not solely used to be the Roswell UFO crash real, however, that people have been contacted many times through aliens, however, governments determined it exceptional to disguise the reality for over 60 years. He mentioned flatly that, "I manifest to have been privileged ample to be in on the truth that we've been visited on this planet and the UFO phenomenon is real." The radio station managed to get an announcement from David Stites, NASA headquarters spokesman, which denied the astronauts' phrases, saying, "NASA does now not tune UFOs. NASA is no longer worried in any type of cowl-up about alien lifestyles on this planet or somewhere in the universe." Dr. Michell is a notable American, however, we do now not share his opinions on this issue. Furthermore, Dr. Michell goes on to say that he definitely believes in existence on different planets and that he has no doubt about it whatsoever. He mentioned to Kerrang radio, "There are lifestyles at some stage in the universe. We are no longer by myself in the universe at all." He said that he has been fortunate sufficient to recognize firsthand that aliens have visited us on this planet, insinuating that he has had contact in person, now not to point out that the UFO phenomenon is very actual and has of course been included up by using the US authorities for many decades. He stated that there are extra nonsense and rumors out in the actual world than proper scientific evidence. He insists flatly that aliens have visited Earth on several events and in his words, that the UFO events have been properly protected up through all of our governments for the remaining 60 years or so, however some of the statistics has leaked out a bit by using a bit to the public. Although he used to be now not born in Roswell, he grew up in and spent his early years in the vicinity of Roswell, New Mexico, the place America's most well-known UFO crash took region on July 7, 1947. He commenced college in Roswell and spent most of his childhood and teenagers there earlier than he went off to college. Because his household contributors had been farmers and ranchers, they knew the household that owned the land the place the alien Roswell craft crashed. As a youngster, he solely heard the memories from the older of us that had been there at the time of the crash. He is assured that an actual UFO had crashed due to the fact the army humans and the genius humans have been very inclined to discuss to him as soon as he had grown to be an astronaut because they assumed that he was once privileged to comparable information. He believes that the remnants of the crash, which covered 2 aliens, one lifeless and one alive, have been dispatched to some facility somewhere. But when requested were, he regarded too scared to say. Instead, he answered, "I don't be aware of the reply to that one." He is in no way stated Area 51 or Area S4, simply a few miles away from the place he grew up. In an interview of unknown date with sci-fi.com, Dr. Michell noted this about the Roswell crash: "The proof factors to the fact that Roswell was once an actual incident, and that certainly an alien craft did crash, and that material was once recovered from that crash site. If this is true, no longer solely does the USAF have alien technology, however, they additionally have the one stay and one lifeless alien. That means they now have alien DNA to use for cloning purposes. Why clone an optimum species? To increase it and acquire its loyalty, and consequently use it for its severe mind as nicely as attaining any expertise ingrained into its DNA." Dr. Michell was once lucky sufficient to have been briefed on the UFO facts periodically. He has been in Navy circles and talent circles of human beings from specific international locations whose job entailed matters that go way past that of public knowledge. He has been worried about a lot of UFO work in the government, however, he says it's no longer his foremost work area. He has then again been worried about lookup committees and lookup applications with very credible scientists and geniuses in their fields that do, in my opinion, comprehend the fact about aliens and UFOs that have been considered and even captured. Some of these human beings in the 80s informed him of their testimonies of what they had witnessed in the government. He says that the authorities are presently in contact with aliens. He thinks a full disclosure of UFO records might also come from the US authorities in the coming years. When he is requested via the radio interviewer if he used to be worried about any viable extreme penalties that the US authorities may additionally use on him, he noted that "No, I don't assume they are knocking off everybody anymore." Note, this sentence suggests he was once conscious the US government used to kill those that leaked UFO information. Doing drastic matters to them. When puzzled about the intent of the aliens being an adverse mindset or a non-hostile one, Dr. Michell felt that it used to be non-hostile for sure. He stated, "Obviously if it had been hostile, we would have been long gone using now." He says he has even been privileged to see aliens and says they are comparable to the common public faith in the truth that they have massive eyes and giant heads. He states, "Little human beings that seem bizarre to us. The aliens have small grey bodies." He says surely there have been ET visitations and crashed crafts and that there have been substances and our bodies recovered from these crashes. He additionally noted a few years again that there is a crew of human beings somewhere, that may additionally or may also now not be related with authorities at this point, however simply have been at one time, that had this knowledge. He feels that the government's way of managing the UFO records leak is by and large primarily based upon denial, by way of denying the fact of the documents, images, and videos leaked and by way of attempting to exhibit that proof leaked is a hoax or fake. He mentioned to sci-fi.com that there has been very massive disinformation and misinformation effort around this complete area. And one has to wonder, how higher to conceal something out in the open than simply to say it isn't there? You're deceiving yourself if you suppose this is true, and yet there it is proper in the front of you. In his book, The Way of the Explorer, posted in 1996, Dr. Michell says that after he acquired lower back to Earth after the Apollo 14 mission that he used to be so mentally disturbed, that he may want to no longer be aware of the peak ride of his life. That he sincerely went to a therapist to get help to understand the matters that he had viewed via hypnotic regression and such. In his e-book, he stated that he carried out ESP experiments on the flight. Understand that many superior species speak through ESP, like the Greys. This plus the truth that after he completed the moon landing, he situated the Institute of Noetic Sciences, which especially targeted upon ESP, leads us to agree that astronaut Edgar Michell might also perchance have been chosen for the mission due to the fact he himself has ESP or telepathy. This would possibly be beneficial if they encountered the aliens recognized as the Greys, due to the fact they are stated to be unable to talk orally, however as an alternative communicate telepathically. In his e-book, he stated that as he appeared out towards Earth, surrounded by using the blackness of area with an unfathomable variety of stars, he felt an overwhelming feeling of usual connectedness, marking the factor that would exchange the course of his life. In the past, 1994, Dr. Michell had cited to the St. Petersburg Times newspaper that there are many insiders inside the US authorities that had been analyzing the recovered bodies of aliens. That this particular organization has stopped briefing US presidents after John F. Kennedy. Unknowingly when he stated this, he brought gas to the fireplace about why Kennedy was once truly assassinated. One conspiracy idea that I determined in my opinion SCW is that Kennedy was once assassinated due to the fact on November 12, 1963, he dispatched the CIA director a letter that ended with this statement, "When this fact has been sorted out, I would like you to prepare an application of information sharing with NASA. The place unknowns are a factor. This will assist NASA mission administrators in their protecting responsibilities. I would like a meantime record on the evaluation of the record no later than February 1, 1964, signed John F. Kennedy." It used to be a mere 11 days later when JFK was once killed, making some query if the CIA resented taking orders from the president, who they may additionally see as now not having ample journey to make such decisions. We can also in no way examine the fact of who killed him, however, we can count on that if no different presidents had been cautioned of alien bodies, alien prisoners, alien captured or traded craft, then what befell with JFK that made them cease telling US presidents? Second, when JFK requested the CIA in the memo to share categorized information with NASA, did the CIA consider that it used to be nearly like going public with it? A top-notch secret department of the CIA, privy solely to a few, referred to as the MKULTRA, had a software of thought and conduct manage lookup that they implemented. The software itself used to be begun in 1953 and would remain till 1963. The CIA's first involvement with hypnosis got here in the Office of Security, which in 1950 created one-of-a-kind interrogation squads, every of which had a professional hypnotist. The hypnotist's motive for being there was once to discover the unconscious of manageable overseas sellers and defectors from enemy countries. It went with the aid of the code Identify Bluebird. The undertaking was once headed by way of Morse Allen, a former officer of each Naval Intelligence and the State Department. Allen requested younger CIA secretaries to come to go to him after their workday used to be finished. He rapidly ran them via the hypnotic steps. He proved to his very own pleasure that he should manipulate every action. For example, he had secretaries steal labeled archives and supply them to humans who have been strangers. In this way, the secretaries violated the most simple CIA safety policies put out for them. He had them steal objects from every different and even began fires in the building. He had one of them go to the bedroom of an unknown man and then go into a deep sleep. Allen felt he had no longer long passed to the aspect yet. In 1954 he hypnotized every other secretary, and informed her to choose up a gun, unloaded, and shoot the different secretary, and she did. In 1963 the CIA launched a 128-page counterintelligence interrogation manual. This file used to be no longer made public until 1997. Among its approaches, it makes use of its website's hypnosis. This guide stated that hypnosis offers one gain now not inherent in different interrogation strategies or aids: the post-hypnotic suggestion. The film sheds a lot of mild on the CIA and their planting of guidelines to forget both what they had been through, like Dr. Michell getting into an alien constructing or craft and speaking with them, or what they had done, or what they had discussed. The guide mentioned bluntly, it ought to be viable to administer a silent drug to a resistant source, persuade him as the drug takes impact that he is slipping into a hypnotic trance, region him underneath proper hypnosis as cognizance is returning, shift his body of reference so that his motives for resistance end up motives for cooperation, interrogate him, and conclude the session via implanting the advice that when he emerges from the trance, he will no longer take note something about what had happened. Since the CIA has a department that deals with UFO and alien technological know-how, and the truth that they don't inform NASA everything suggests that the CIA can also have interrogated Dr. Michell, both earlier than the raise off or after his landing. A post-hypnotic recommendation should have been implanted for him to record to them the whole lot after landing, the place they then say the set of words, inflicting him to forget about the whole lot that he had viewed on his 9-hour moonwalk. One aspect is clear: nobody, specifically anyone as mentally and bodily suited as an astronaut, would forget about taking part on a 9-hour moonwalk, no longer to point out that the astronaut's air would now not even come shut to last for that long. The Apollo suite used to be solely designed for 7 hours of non-stop use, but it did have a 30-minute emergency oxygen tank.